All right, we're recording, so I'm gonna call this, meeting of the City Council of, City of Holly Island to order. It's our regular meeting, December 20th, 2022, 6:00 p.m. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wes, you want to call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Dumas.
Here.
Councilmember Elwood.
Here.
Councilmember Graves.
Here.
Councilmember Mills.
Here.
Councilmember Pittman.
Here.
All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I guess I call a quorum. Moving on to approving the agenda, there's an item on the agenda to pass an ordinance covering the budget adjustments for 2022. But Wes and I didn't get that done, and we really still have 1 month of checks to write yet, or a partial month. So we're gonna wait until January. We just need to have that on file basically for legislative audit if there are any budget items that we overspent on. So we'll cover that in the January meeting. Are there any other additions, corrections to the agenda? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the amended agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve it as amended.
We have a motion by Pat. We have a second.
I'll second.
Ken seconded it. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. Wes did distribute minutes of the November 22nd meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes of 11/22.
Ken made a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
Linda made a second, or seconded the motion. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Any ceremonials, recognitions, proclamations, or memorial? Hearing none, we'll move on to reports. Financial statements, Wes.
Yes, okay. On the balance sheet, we ended the month with a total of $457,675 in the bank. The general fund had $223,486, 75,000 in the reserve fund, 159,000 in the street fund. As far as revenue and expenses, for the general fund, the revenue for the month was $24,094. The expenses were $10,835, leaving a surplus for the month of $13,258, and an ending balance, the ending balance of $223,486 in the general fund. Now, I will say, in December, we just wrote the check. We paid $50,000 to the district towards fire protection, and I think it was $12,000 some odd dollars, 700 or so, for the street fund for our share of the street maintenance. The street fund, oh, come on. Receipts for the month were $42,985. That That included 25,402 for our share of the county property tax, and no expenses, so that brought our balance to the 159,188 there.
Any question?
And, okay, nothing out of the general fund reserve, so there's balance of 75,000 there.
Okay, any questions on the financials?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
do we hold the books open until all the receipts are in? Because they don't come before the end of the month, is that correct?
What was that?
Will the December receipts come in December, or will they coming in January?
Which ones?
Whatever we get from the county?
No,
The state?
There would be, we had,
I know you reported you got some, but will it be more?
yeah, we got some, and I expected that today we got, like $500 from the general fund, but our share of the street fund was not there, I guess, yesterday and not today, so. And I have no idea what that would be. It was what,
Because you reported 152,000, and we're looking ahead a bit, but it looks like a 177
Yeah, well,
at the beginning, so.
seeing last month's property tax for the streets was 25,402.
Well, I think in answer to your question, we would not hold the books open for December.
No,
If something comes in late, it just gets booked in a month.
Okay.
That it came in.
because it's received and dispersed in, when we receive it.
Okay.
That's when we report it,
All right.
so we don't approve it.
Two votes. All right, any other questions on the financials?
Make a motion, we accept the financial statements.
Second?
Ken made a motion to accept the financials, Lynn seconded it, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right,
I'd like to report for interesting information. Our check to Computer Hut last month was stolen from the post office. I always mail inside the post office. They picked their mail up inside the post office, and it didn't get there. So, it was cashed in New York.
Oh, really? So are we protected?
No, as soon as the bank reimburses, that's a bank problem out there, and I had a phone call from the postal inspector in Little Rock last week. They found our check, somebody got arrested, and he had our check amongst 400 others.
Oh, from our post office?
Yeah, no,
Little Rock.
probably in Little Rock. And, you know, somebody in the post office, and he said, well, either some postal employee took it, or they took it and sold it. They get bought, you know, employees can take them and sell them, and then they scan it and put it out on the internet for auction. And then they use check writing equipment to print a new check and scan our signatures on it, because you know, our signatures look legitimate, so it was fraudulent. So I suppose if they don't recover from somebody in New York, it'll be probably some bank in New York that'll be out. But money was put back into our account the same day we found it. So when you mail checks, that's a danger.
But it's interesting and pleasantly surprising that, that they caught the guy, and it didn't really take very long. I
Yeah.
guess because it was an inside job at the post office, that narrowed the field considerably, but, they did catch him.
Would we want to entertain the idea of having them debit our credit card or something like that?
Well, I've thought about it, but we're supposed to have checks signed by two people.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think.
So,
Yeah, the
I
debiting bank
still
accounts or
have
credit
intentions
cards.
of calling legislative audit and seeing what they say, because we're also having trouble with the city credit card. Takes us 2 weeks to get or 10 days to 2 weeks to get the statement in the mail after the closing date.
Right,
And then we pay it, and last month, one check took 2 weeks to get back there for them to cash, and then it was late, and there's a late charge.
yeah, because you're paying that by check, obviously.
Now,
Okay, moving on then to committees. Jerry, you had an update of, a little update on the
Yeah,
broadband thing.
There's gonna be another round of broadband grants. The FCC on its website has a, coverage map. And, if individuals would go and find that and, then do a test like we did before, but, you can challenge, if it says you've got adequate service, you can hit a challenge button, and they'll do some further investigation. Rodney Balance said the criteria, instead of 25, 2, there'll be 100 and 100. So that's gonna, I don't think many people hit those numbers. So we may have a better chance to get a grant.
But would this require a lot of response from people in Holiday Island to go and do that?
I mean, we had a lot of response the last time. In
Yeah,
fact, I don't know if Dan was at that meeting, but, that one of the last 3 Cs, and they showed, Carroll County and Holiday Island, Green Forest, Berryville, Eureka, and we had more residents respond than any of those.
But I guess my point is, if we need to have that kind of response in order to get any consideration, then we need to put together a plan to advertise it and ramp up interest in getting this done so that people know where to go, how to do it, and that it needs to be done by a certain date.
Yeah, and that's the plan. Sandy Martin, who's kind of the ramrod of the Carroll County Collaborative, is organizing a meeting of the cities with the broadband director. He didn't agree to come the last time because they'd already given all the money, but he is coming this time. So that will be shortly after the first of the year.
Okay.
And then we'll get, I don't think they're not having a newsletter until, I think, after January. Here, so we'll get the word out on that. But anyway, there's been 2 rounds, and Berryville got 75,000, and not in Carroll County, but Boone got some money, and so we'll hope.
well, report, I always said that we had good service. Well, ours has been on and off the last 2 or 3 weeks. They've been to our house 3 times. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And the guy yesterday said, well, we've been told the problem is on the distribution line, and supposedly they've been out there to fix it, but the guy yesterday said, no, they hadn't.
Is it Cox? Is that who you do?
Mm-hmm.
Every year when it turns cold, I mean, really cold, not just mildly cold, but cold like it's getting now, we have trouble with Cox at our house, and it's got something to do with the signal strength has to be adjusted for the cold temperature, and it doesn't automatically happen or something.
Well, it's supposed to automatically happen, but then apparently the equipment quits functioning and then you lose the signal.
Yes, it's not really close enough to Highway 23. I never have had any problem, but it may be where I live.
I'll just pull my car up. next
There you
time I
go,
look
pull
at
in
it.
the driveway, 'cause my Wi-Fi works on the patio or around, pull in the driveway and I'll give you the code.
Mine was out for a while this morning, and then it came back on again, so I fully expect that, like tonight, we'll probably have trouble. Okay, the planning commission,
Okay.
We did have, the last meeting, we talked about some of the ordinance changes that we're considering. I have gotten some edits from Pat on parking, and Jerry's working on the signs, so we have more to discuss next time.
Okay.
That'll be in our January meeting.
and we do have an ordinance to consider tonight with some changes. Ken, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to say something about the work that we did with trying to get our zip code straightened out. I worked with the gentleman in Steve Womack's office, Kyle Wheaton, and who had worked previously with Town in trying to get them some relief. We came up with, I thought was a really good plan, and all they had to do was change their database to now 72631. The preferred city under that is now Eureka Springs, and we asked them to change the preferred to Holiday Island, and Eureka would be another allowed one like Bush and a couple other little. The letter came back from the district over in Oklahoma, I think it's Oklahoma City, and she said, we can't give you exclusive use of 72631, and we can't change the boundaries. I wanted to write back and tell her we didn't ask for either one of those, we just asked you to change the damn database. But I was overruled, but they didn't think that would be being very nice. But they did offer a procedure, and that should work. It should give us some relief. And I talked to the lady in Little Rock who's going to do it, and Dan sent them a drive has all the addresses from Holiday Island on it. And what they're gonna do is they'll load that in their database, so if you put your address down, it'll come out Holiday Island rather than Eureka. They say. And I tried to call her today to confirm that we are going on down that path. She said it would be January or February before they would do it, but I will keep up with it. But hopefully we get some relief.
Supposedly, they've already done this in Town, and it's worked for them, so we should anticipate it'll work for us. Okay, moving on then, we don't have any old business under new business. It's the time of the year to do the budget. So in the past, actually we've done it both ways. This will be our third budget. The first one we did under a resolution, and then after seeing what some other cities did, I convinced myself that we should do it by an ordinance. We did it by ordinance last year, and the law allows you to do it either way. The only difference is if you make your budget by an ordinance, then it takes an ordinance to change the budget during the year. If you do it by resolution, then it only takes a resolution. So I went back to doing it by resolution again this year. I think, long term, I think this is the best way to go about it. So we have resolution number 2022-012 to consider. We'll have a motion to pass resolution number 2022-012. We get a motion to pass it, then I'll have the resolution read and open it for discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Jerry made a motion to approve the resolution and Lynn seconded it, so want me to read it or you wanna read it?
Okay, I can read it. Resolution 2022-012. A resolution adopting the operating budget for 2023 for the city of Holiday Island, Arkansas. Whereas the city council of the city of Holiday Island, Arkansas has made a comprehensive review of the proposed budget, and whereas in the opinion of the city council, the proposed budget reflects as accurately as possible the anticipated revenue and expenditures of the city of Holiday Island for the 2023 calendar year. Now therefore be resolved by the city council of the city of Holiday Island, Arkansas, that Section 1, the resolution shall be known as a budget resolution for the 12-month period beginning on 1/1/23 and ending on 12/31/23, and that the attached budget documents reflect the estimated revenues and expenditures for the period. All revenues and appropriations are estimates and are subject to change during the budgetary year. Section 2, the amounts of the revenues and expenditures for the year 2023 are hereby authorized and appropriated for the purposes set forth for the calendar year ending 12/31/23. Estimated revenue. General revenue, $318,316. Appropriations, general fund, $347,440. Street fund, revenue, $286,500. Street fund appropriations, $40,000. Total revenue, $699,816. Total appropriations, $387,440. Section 3, the extraordinary expense of providing a patrol vehicle to the county to be used by the second patrol deputy to be covered using surplus cash in the general fund. Fund balances, general fund beginning $167,009, change $29,124 decrease, ending balance $137,885. Street fund beginning balance $177,148, change gain of $246,500, ending balance $423,648. General fund reserve beginning balance $75,000, no change, ending balance $75,000. Total beginning balance $419,157. The change for the year $217,376 surplus, ending balance $636,533. Passed and approved by the City Council of Holiday Island, Arkansas on this date of 12/20/2022. Approved, Daniel Keys, Mayor, attest, Wesley Stilley, Recorder Treasurer.
Okay, and there's two attachments to the resolution. One is the general fund statement of revenues and expenditures, and the other is the street fund statement of revenues and expenditures, which gives you a little bit more detail of what's going into the budget. I guess I really don't have too many comments to make about this. This is all pretty much the way we have been discussing it for the last couple of months. We went back and forth as to whether or not the vehicle that we are budgeting to supply to the county, whether that would be a capital item or an expense item. It doesn't really affect cash flow one way or another. And Wes and I decided that since we wouldn't retain ownership of that vehicle, it would just be expensed. So we included that, the cost of that vehicle in the public safety department expense, which is why the, the revenue and expense actually shows a deficit for the general fund. If you just look at the single year revenue and expenses. We have plenty in the carryover cash in the general fund to cover that purchase. The street fund, we're ending up with a very healthy balance of, if everything goes by budget, we would have a ending balance of over $400,000. Of course, everybody knows that we kind of save our money on the street fund until we get a grant, and then we put our money with the grant to do as large a paving project as possible. So that was the plan again. I went back and looked at the application we turned in. Of course, everybody knows we got a grant last year that we used this year to do some paving. I submitted another grant application in March of this year. They kicked it back and said, you guys just got 300,000. You're gonna have to wait in line a little bit. And so they said, resubmit your application in 2023. So I have it laying on my desk. So in January, when we come back, I'm gonna resubmit it. I will probably bring it up. It doesn't have to be submitted in January. We'd have, a couple of months to consider this. I'll probably bring it up before the council again, before I turn it in, for two reasons. One, we probably wanna, reaffirm our resolution that we passed of authorizing me to solicit the grant money. And secondly, it wouldn't hurt to take another look at whether or not these are the highest priority streets that we picked to pave this time around. And given the fact that we're gonna have a pretty substantial amount of money, between the grant money and what we'll have on hand, we'd have $700,000, so we could probably expand that project out a little bit. The state will only manage up to $550,000 project, but if we wanted to do something beyond that, we could. We just have to manage the project ourselves. So that's where we stand. Of course, we did budget, even though we've talked about looking at setting up our own police department. The only firm numbers we have to go into next year is for the sheriff's contract for 2 deputies. So that's the way we're submitting the budget. If we choose to do something other than that, as we get into the year, then we will pass a resolution adjusting the budget accordingly.
Dan?
Yes.
Excuse me. So in the appropriation of $40,000 in the street fund for next year, is that to cover the street maintenance of those roads we've
It's
accepted?
street maintenance, and I have some money in there for signage, because we've been working with, actually Rotary started the project, and it was intended to just look at the signs at the entrances and some of the other informational signs, like, the marina that way, all those wooden signs that are pretty tattered and worn and need to be replaced. That got expanded a little bit to where we were provided with a picture of every sign in the Holiday Island, regardless of what it is, that needs to be cleaned up, straightened up, or just flat out replaced. And, Rotary and the district are probably gonna cover a lot of the, the informational signs and the entrance signs and stuff like that. But we can use state street fund money or turn back money to do you know, like speed limit signs, stop signs and stuff like that.
I would say probably stop signs probably need to be a high priority there too. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, some of those are, you didn't recognize the rectangle.
All right, any other discussion on the budget resolution? If not, I'll entertain, no, we'll take a roll call vote.
Okay. Councilmember Dumas,
Aye.
Councilmember Elwood,
Aye.
Councilmember Graves,
Aye.
Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
Councilmember Pittman.
Aye.
All in favor, Mr. Mayor?
Okay, they passed. And this is a rare occasion when we get to actually sign one, because there aren't typos and everything else that have to be fixed.
You're getting better.
Getting lucky.
Oh, there's a time out of play.
Too late.
That's her job.
All right, moving on then. Solid waste ordinance. Before I introduce this ordinance, I'm going to do a little prep work here. We signed our contract with the Carroll County Solid Waste for the solid waste collection in April of this year. And so we're not a full year into that contract yet. So one would kind of expect that we wouldn't have to be looking at any kind of rate increase or anything for at least until the anniversary of that contract rolls around. The contract basically says that that Carroll County Solid Waste can petition for a rate increase when they think they need one. It doesn't say annually or anything like that. All the other cities and the county have their rate adjustment, whatever it needs to be, done on January 1st of each year. So, I didn't agree to anything yet, but I'm presenting this budget to get us on the same cycle as that, or I'm not budget, but this ordinance to get us on the same schedule as all the other, as the rest of the county. I think the amount that they're asking for is reasonable, and so with the amount of inflation that they have seen over the last couple of years, like I said, I think this is reasonable. So I would entertain a motion to pass ordinance number 2022-016. And if we get a motion and a second, then we'll read the ordinance and open it up for discussion. Do I have a motion? All right, the ordinance fails for lack of a motion. Not sure how we're gonna deal with Carroll County Solid Waste on that, but we'll see. All right.
Is it appropriate to discuss it just, or ask a question?
Huh?
Is it appropriate to ask you a question about
Sure.
it right now?
Sure.
Did they lead us to believe that we were on an annual from date of signing the contract?
We never talked about it. And the language is there I think in the contract, so.
I think everybody got a notice in the mail stating that your rates are gonna go up. So I don't know. This may be a mute question.
No, I told them that the contract was passed by ordinance, was accepted by ordinance, and it has to be, any change to that has to be made by ordinance, so I will have to have a discussion with, Carroll County Solid Waste if the council isn't gonna consider a rate adjustment at this time.
When did we send that was it April?
Dan, I have a question, if we're taking questions. What percentage raise?
5.3%. And there's also a rider in there, all the rest of the county, all the cities and the county have been paying a fuel surcharge. And that would be added into our contract also. Right now, you'd probably be getting money back on that rate surcharge because it's based on $3 a gallon and fuel is down in the 250 range now.
Can I ask?
So you'd actually have a credit to your rate.
If they are burning diesel,
I was
They
gonna
don't
ask,
use
is it-
diesel.
they don't have any diesels, the bigger trucks are?
They use pretty much all gas.
Just a thought here. If this were resubmitted along about the end of March, it might be more palatable.
But could we change it if resubmit it in March and then somehow make it back to yearly? I hate to not be yearly with if everybody else is January to January, why would we want to be different?
Well, I think if we redo it in April of next year.
Yeah, I would make it,
Then we would, it would be, for the period from April to January.
Yeah, and the public would understand that, but, I mean, there was no.
No, we thought we had a year contract.
Yeah,
well, what I'm saying is I don't have a problem with that a year's contract, we thought we did. But can we not make an ordinance somehow in April to get us back with everybody else going January to
We
January?
would.
I mean, that fits the budget easier anyway.
well, we would, January of 2024.
But that would be 3/4 of a year.
I can't imagine that the rate increase affects our budget that much.
No, it doesn't affect our budget, it affects my budget at
And
all.
also, it shouldn't affect their system either, because every city has different rates. So it's not like we're all on the same rate table.
Yeah, when I went over that, every city had a different rate. And, ours is very favorable, based, I think there was only one that was lower. But if we can get by with it, it would create less turmoil if we could put the rate change off until April.
Well, it's gonna cost if it were approved now, it would cost the average homeowner
50
about
cents.
$4.
No, it's less than that.
I'm saying over the course of 4 months,
Oh,
it would cost them,
it costs, over
maybe $1 a month.
well, 5% of, 9 is 1.4, I think. So
I thought I read
be
the
$1 a
contract
quarter.
would say that it was good for a year. Maybe I'm wrong.
Anyway, if they got a problem with it, we'll deal with it in January.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I got that little card from them and my rate did not change. I have the
Well, you have,
low volume one and it was it's been $9.95 and it is $9.95 now plus that.
but you haven't got a January bill yet.
Yeah, it was for the 2023 rate period, that's what they sent me.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, they may be honoring our contract.
Well, that's not the rate schedule they gave me. The rate schedule they gave me was 5%, 5.3% for every classification.
Well, the only thing I can think of on that is, because I chose the elderly / infirm rate.
You want to,
And that was, that's what they call it. Here you have it at a low volume.
you want to change the ordinance to 1st of April? Dan?
And deal it with it now, you mean?
Huh?
You wanna do it now, but make it effective April?
No, we can't do that because a rate change in April they require a consumer price index calculation based on the 12-month period ending in February. So it'll be a different calculation. And the fuel surcharge is based on what they're paying for fuel versus $3 a gallon. So all those numbers will change between now and April.
I don't think so.
Well, the consumer price index has been going down for the last, I think it's 4 months.
So we might come out ahead.
Right?
Anyway, okay.
All right, well, I will talk to them. You're not pretty, but I'll talk to them.
What do you get special?
I would have to say that, you know, they've been very good about working with Holiday Island on our problems getting people signed up, our problems with people piling their garbage at the end of the driveway, and us not having code enforcement capability to enforce our own ordinances. So they're kind of helping us take care of it. They're coming over tomorrow to do exactly that. And we may be turning a relationship with them sour over a very small amount of money. That's my 2 cents worth. All right, moving on to ordinance 2022-018.
Dan?
Yes,
When will code enforcement take place, start?
well, every time I think we're on the very verge of doing it, something comes up to delay it a little bit. Of course, we've had our code enforcement officer for some time. What's been holding us up is getting set up in district court. If you don't have a court to prosecute the cases that for the citations you write, you're just wasting your time. You have no leverage. So we thought we had an agreement all worked out with Eureka Springs. In fact, Eureka Springs signed the agreement. I took it over to the county. They were ready to sign it. We had a meeting with Judge Ramsey and his staff last week. And I thought that all we were going there for is to work out the nuts and bolts of how the city was going to interact with the district court. And we came away from that meeting with some questions as to whether or not I guess we can do it at all. And our city attorney, and we think that we're on strong legal standing with the way we're approaching it. It all comes down to the fact that we don't have a police department, and we use the sheriff's department. And the way the law is written, it says if a city has a police department but they don't have their own district court, they can share in the cost of operating a district court with a neighboring department. In this case, it would be Eureka Springs. Well, the law also says that in lieu of having your own police department, you can contract with the sheriff's department for, for police protection. And so we think that we're hung up on the technicality of how the law was written. And, but we think we can get by that. So it's in the hands of the lawyers to come up with a convincing argument for Judge Ramsey that what we're doing is perfectly legal.
But should that preclude the code enforcer from issuing citations? I mean, that's assuming that everybody is not going to comply with the citation and take it to court.
Well, the process is that you issue a notification first of a notice of violation, and you give people some amount of
I
time,
know that.
minimum of 7 days to address it. If that doesn't happen, then you issue them a citation, but the citation is a summons to appear in court. So if you don't have a court, you can't issue a summons.
Well, I thought something you sent out or something I read that our code enforcement can issue citations and the city can collect on certain, violations.
A sworn code enforcement, the county doesn't enforce ordinances. The sheriff's department doesn't enforce ordinances. Our code enforcement officer does. The law says a sworn code enforcement officer can issue citations for code violations for city ordinances. All it takes to be a sworn code enforcement officer is for me to swear in Aaron as our code enforcement officer, which I've done. So now he can write citations. But if you don't have a court to enforce that citation, then it's a waste of time.
What Jerry's saying is, well, hopefully most people would get it and comply.
If they were gonna comply, they would have complied after the notice of violation.
But we're not issuing any notices of violation.
Yes, we have. We have done that in several occasions already in anticipation of the district court.
Okay, then why don't we just take the next step, continuing to anticipate, but, move the process forward. I mean,
Because the next step is issuing a summons, and the summons has to have.
if they don't pay, if he issues a citation, he's giving them notification, and I don't know what it says about how many days or weeks they've got to comply, and then we give them a citation and X number of days to pay that, and then at that point, it's turned over to the district court.
Well, there is no step like that. We can't impose any fines here. The judge has to impose the fine.
The county prosecuting attorney advised our code enforcement officer not to issue any more notices.
Until the district court thing is worked out. When our code enforcement officer issues a citation, which is a summons to appear in court, he has to get a court date from the district court clerk, and he puts that date on the summons, the date they have to appear in court. He also has to recommend a fine. The judge looks at our recommended fine and decides what he thinks is appropriate. We can ask for a fine of $250. He may actually issue a fine of $100 or something like that. That's up to the judge. And then the district court clerk collects the fines.
We're not really wiped out yet because we're gonna be, all this stuff is gonna be effective 1st of January anyway. So we still got.
I'm still optimistic that we're gonna get past this hurdle, because Horseshoe Bend has had district court. Horseshoe Bend doesn't even have a police department. They contract with Izard County, just like we are planning on contracting with Carroll County. They've been doing it since 2013, and they have district court. They have their own department. They're not trying to share the cost of a district court with another city,
Which doesn't.
but it's still, would it be absurd logic to think that, you don't need to have a police department to have your own district court, but you do have to have a police department to share in the cost of a district court. That would be absurd logic.
But
And
I
I'm
guess
confident
I'm
our
having a hard
lawyers-
time understanding, at the last meeting, we talked about, we wanted to go pursue the police department route. Is that correct?
We were going, yeah, we were going to start working on heading in that direction. But that's not something we can do by January 1st.
I understand that, okay.
It's a technicality that that I'm confident and our lawyer is confident that we can get by. Okay, ordinance 2022-018. An ordinance revising the zoning map table and appendix 7-02 for unit 303 within the city of Holiday Island and declaring an emergency. Do I have a motion to pass that ordinance?
I'll move that we pass ordinance 2022-18.
I'll second.
Lynn made a motion to approve. Linda is seconding it. So Lynn, you want to read it?
Certainly. Ordinance 2022-18, an ordinance revising the zoning map table in appendix 7-2 for unit 303 within the city of Holiday Island and declaring an emergency. Whereas on or about October 4th, 2022, the City Council of Holiday Island adopted ordinance 22-6 to provide planning and zoning regulations, a zoning map, and a zoning map table for within the city. And whereas the City Planning Commission and City Council acted in good faith to accurately record zoning information within the city boundaries for the unit block lot designations from the available declarations of reservations. And whereas the declarations of reservations for unit 303 were not available prior to adoption of ordinance 22-6, the zoning was aligned in good faith with the neighboring district zoning. And whereas on or about October 19th, 22, the city was notified by an interested person that a declaration of reservations for unit 303 was filed with the clerk and recorder of Carroll County, Arkansas, on or about October 29th, 2007, in Deed Book 178, pages 728 through 734, was delivered and reviewed. And whereas the unit 303 declaration of reservation states in part, quote, that all the lots within the unit shall be designated as R3 multifamily residential lots, end quote, is contrary to the city zoning map and zoning map table of R1 low density single family residential district zoning. And whereas this constitutes an exceptional circumstance that the City Planning Commission last discussed without objection on December 13th, 22, the City Council of Holiday Island now finds it to be in the best interest of the citizens of Holiday Island and desires to amend the zoning map text in the zoning map table in appendix 7-2 residential district lots, yard, and height regulations by ordinance. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Holiday Island, Arkansas, section 1, that the documents entitled the zoning map and the zoning map table shall be amended for unit 303 from R1 low density single family residential to R3 multifamily residential district zoning and are hereby adopted. Section 2, the appendix 7-2 residential district lot, yard, and height regulations shall be amended for unit 303 from NA to the information extracted from the unit 303 declaration reservations as depicted below and are hereby adopted. For unit 303, the property minimum setback for front is 25 feet, 20 feet for total side, 10 feet for minimum side, 10 feet corner lot and side streets, 25 feet to the rear. The minimum easement is 5 feet on the side, 7.5 feet on the rear. Maximum height of structures is 30 feet, and the maximum percentage of lot coverage is 50%. Section 3, that the documents entitled zoning map and the zoning map table in the appendix 7-2 residential district lots, yard, and height regulations shall be updated, reprinted, duly certified, filed with the city recorder treasurer in the city office, and made available on the city website within 30 days. Section 4, declaration of emergency. It is hereby found and determined that the amendments to the zoning map table in appendix 7-2 should be adopted immediately in order to provide clarification of the zoning for unit 303 within the city of Holiday Island and to align with the understanding and urgent development desires of interested persons. Therefore, an emergency is declared to exist, and this act being immediately necessary for the preservation and protection of the public peace, health, safety, and welfare of the city and its citizens shall become effective on the date of its passage and approved by the mayor.
Okay, is there any discussion on this?
Yeah, where is unit 303?
It's the section of ground, it's triangular shape. If you go past the brewery, or not brewery, the
Mountain Bird Coffee.
Mountain Bird Coffee, and it'd be the property just ahead of your intersection at the Y. So it's a piece straight ahead and wraps around. You go north through the business district to Mountain Bird Coffee. It's the ground right in front.
Right in front of it?
Beyond that,
No, it's,
at the intersection of the Y.
So it's inside of the bluff area.
Yes, it's in the bluffs.
it's in the bluffs.
I have a map real
Okay,
quick. I can
okay,
show
so
you.
it's Peach Street
No, it's on the other side of the
on
road.
the other side. They're gonna have R3?
It's R3 according to the covenant. This doesn't show the surrounding property, but that's the shape of it.
How big is it? Just one lot?
It's kind of across from Peachtree, which is probably why it was owned R3.
I can't read the fine print for how large it is.
It looks like
It's about 2.5 or 3 acres.
It would be a small apartment complex.
Little houses.
It depends how much they subdivided it, they just do that.
So it's next to Peach Tree, isn't it?
Across the street diagonal from Peach Street.
But it's still a parcel.
Yes, it's in the map, it's unit 303, block 1, lot 1. It's called a lot.
Any other questions or comments on it?
There's one typo in the last sentence, approval should be approved.
The approval won't work?
Shall become effective and approved.
On the date of its
You have to
passage.
Okay.
Shall become effective and approved.
Okay.
Or be approved.
No, shall become effective on the date of its passage and approval. Approval is the
On.
correct
Oh,
word.
it's a,
It's
it's a,
on.
oh, okay, I got it now,
Okay.
good. Read it too quick.
Okay, any other discussion?
Thank you for trying.
Roll call vote?
Councilmember Dumas,
Aye.
Councilmember Elway,
Aye.
Councilmember Graves,
Aye.
Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
Councilmember Pittman,
Aye.
all in favor, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, the ordinance passes. There was an emergency clause, so we have to, I need a motion to accept the emergency clause.
Make a motion, we accept the emergency clause.
We have a motion, Ken made a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote on the emergency clause.
Councilmember Dumas,
Aye.
Councilmember Elway,
Aye.
Councilmember Graves,
Aye.
Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
Councilmember Pittman,
Aye.
all in favor, Mr. Mayor.
Okay? Then the emergency clause is adopted. So, do you have another assignable copy of this?
Well, I made the marks on mine, but I also did mark okay.
I have one that I had made.
Okay. All right, moving on then, public comments? Any public comments?
Just a question, did you approve the meeting minutes? Did I miss them? You did?
Yes.
Wait a minute, let me get
The
the
mic
clock
on?
started.
Oh, there you go.
3 minutes.
You took 20 seconds there. Ken Brown, Cypress Point Lane. I'm a little concerned about the county and their interaction with the city and the Board of Commissioners. We had our meeting yesterday, the Board of Commissioners. Several of you were there, thank you. And Mr. Presley said he was preparing a contract for a deputy, and it would be signed, hopefully, by January 1st. I hear that we have 2 deputies for the city, and are we gonna have 3 deputies January 1? That's my question.
We are not getting 3 deputies on January 1. Danny and I have discussed this, and we've talked to Judge-elect Ryder, and made him aware of the fact that the district's intent is only to prevent a gap in service if there's a delay getting the city contract for 2 deputies approved, and that the district does not intend to maintain a contract beyond the city contracting with the county.
So, well, when will the Board of Commissioners contract end then? If we start January 1st, I understand the quorum court has not been too cooperative. Would that be an understatement with you all?
Well, now, I don't know that there's anything in here that we can put on the county. I mean, that we're in let's call it election limbo right now. The outgoing sheriff and the outgoing district or county judge don't want to sign anything because they're on their way out the door. And the incoming sheriff and incoming judge haven't been sworn in yet, so they can't sign anything. But the incoming judge has assured us that they will sign these contracts in January.
By
the time they get around to signing a theoretical, gap, bridging contract with the district, they'll probably have the one.
Well, it's concerning me.
Which incidentally, I'm gonna make a comment about that, because I had already talked to the incoming judge about that, and he said that we didn't have to worry about it, that there wouldn't be any gap in coverage. So the action that HICID took, if you'd have asked me first, I could have told you that I've already talked to the incoming judge about that we didn't want to see a gap in service, and that I was concerned about the timing on getting these contracts signed. So my personal opinion is that the district jumping in there and trying to get their contract extended so that we wouldn't have a gap in service was probably maybe well-intended, but unnecessary.
Okay, I only got 1 minute of that 3. I appreciate what you just said, Mr. Mayor, but I think things have been, I think if we had more meetings, maybe 2 a year, of that group, your group, and the Board of Commissioners, some of this would have been avoided. We haven't had a sheriff's report for 4 months, 4 as of yesterday. And it just seems like if we could get together and just talk about how are we gonna form a police department through the city, which you're doing, and I agree with that, but then we're gonna go away from the sheriff, like Aaron Engel. But nobody seems to know that, and then 24 hours ago, Mr. Presley says he's gonna go ahead. So then I come to the meeting tonight, and we're still talking about district court. So it's confusing for the citizens, and it's confusing for me.
It's confusing for us too.
If you remember a year ago that y'all negotiated the contract with the sheriff then, that caught us by surprise, because we'd had the meeting talking about.
We've been in discussion with the county for at least 10 months, trying to get this nailed down. It has not been.
And the district
It has
manager,
not been fun.
the district manager's aware of all that.
I guess I'm a little bit at a loss as to why they're would be any confusion or anything. We discussed this at length during the budget process between the district and the city. It was decided that in January, the city would take over the sheriff's contract. We built our budget accordingly. HICID built their budget accordingly. So I'm at a loss as to why there should be any confusion about it at all.
There's a confusion because we, the commissioners, didn't know
Well, you saw the budget.
it. I did, I worked on the budget, I know the budget, but there's money in there, and it's 10 days away from spending that money that shouldn't have been in there because we weren't gonna hire our own deputy, were we?
There shouldn't be money in your budget for a deputy.
There is.
Well,
Okay.
I guess
Well, no,
We did.
we got in run last year, and I don't wanna see it happen again, I'll tell you what.
Ken, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I lived through the first in run.
I'd just like to make a comment about this, because from my observation, it's not the fault of Dan, it's not the fault of Danny. I think everybody's doing their best to make this work. I'll tell you whose fault it is, it's the attorneys. HICID's attorney doesn't agree with our attorney on things, and they don't agree with the county attorney on things. And that's what's causing all this confusion. So don't blame our city and HICID officials, I don't think is fair. But because it's all a matter of everybody's trying to follow the law as best they see it, and there's a considerable disagreement.
I'm not blaming anybody on that.
No, I'm just saying.
We're not getting it.
I understand the frustration. I'm frustrated. Every time Dan talks to me about what a new lawyer has said, I get frustrated.
Well, I talked to the county lawyer this morning, and I think we're okay.
Yeah, I'm optimistic.
Dan's
I've
talked
said that before, but you have to be optimistic.
and we're going to get some help from the, Justin Eichmann, our attorney, is going to talk to the municipal league, try to find some precedents. But yeah, this has been very frustrating.
And I would have to say that Judge Ramsey, I don't want to sound critical of Judge Ramsey in any way whatsoever. He has been very helpful, very cooperative. Code enforcement is his life. That's 90% of what he deals with in district court. He understands that because we are the only city in Carroll County that doesn't have code enforcement, that we are the community of last resort for the worst of society in Carroll County. They come here because nobody, they can do whatever they want. And he understands, and I think he'll help us any way he can to get this going.
But I about fell out of my chair.
Okay, any other public comments? Otherwise, we don't actually, council members. I should add a thing on here that says, and mayor comments. I think so. I'm gonna take the privilege of doing that at this point. Just a couple of things for the council members' benefit. I have to be sworn in by the county, and they get, I actually get my commission. The mayors get a commission from the governor. Once you get elected, you still have to get a commission from the governor, and you have to pay $5 for that. So I have applied for my commission, and as soon as they get the paperwork back in Berryville, then Connie Doss will call me, and I'll go over there and get sworn in. Once I'm sworn in, then I can swear all you in. Now, I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't even have to wait to be sworn in, because the law says that I serve until I'm replaced or relieved. So I probably could swear you in at midnight on New Year's Eve, if that's what you
No,
want.
you can't.
We can all meet down here, but,
No, let's do it at the party.
yeah,
Well, we won't, some of us won't be up till
No,
midnight.
it's over at 10.
Yeah, but it's not 23 until midnight.
That's the new midnight,
Yes.
10 o'clock.
It's 10 o'clock, it's
What
midnight
you're
someplace.
Oh, they are in midnight.
told, I mean, is
that's
that
what
what,
that's what I've been told,
okay,
that I can,
because Connie and Sherry
Scotia or out?
told me that we all had to go over there
Yeah.
at midnight on the first.
No.
Is that too much?
Okay,
we got a better ruling on that, that I can
Scotia's
swear.
another hour.
Connie told Jack Deaton that I can swear in everybody over here.
okay.
So, I'm saying January 2nd, it's a Monday. We can meet down here at maybe you wanna pick a time, 10 o'clock?
When is January the 2nd, Monday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we don't have to do that in an announced public meeting?
I'd say about 10
Do it
o'clock.
privately?
yeah, I mean, we didn't when we got sworn in over.
That's true.
What are we gonna wear?
Huh?
I said, what are we gonna wear?
New Year's Eve party hat.
Lynn will wear a tie, he did the last time.
Come on.
We're gonna have to get our picture taken this time.
Oh, yes, we do,
Yeah, we have to have one without masks.
yeah.
The only one out there we all have masks on.
We went 2 years without a photograph.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
would you be swearing in the Mosa people on this same day?
I don't know that.
I haven't read a statute that says they have to be sworn in. They're appointed or they're nominated and appointed by the council. That was done.
Yeah, I think you're sworn in until you're no longer on the council,
I just needed to know if I needed to get up early that day.
no.
10 o'clock early?
10 o'clock is early now.
By 9 o'clock, our dog has got me up for 5 hours.
10 o'clock is close.
4 hours.
Don, they didn't tell you that the BOZA committee is going to be, meetings are at 6 a.m. breakfast meeting.
I resigned.
You can't resign. You're not-
There's one piece of business that I would like to get on the agenda for, not for a meeting, but for us to get accomplished relatively early next year. When we first incorporated, we passed a flurry of resolutions about how we were gonna operate, what's our agenda look like, when are we gonna meet, where are we gonna meet, what are our basic accounting rules, and just a whole bunch of, very basic stuff that would all ordinarily be in Title I in a municipal code. It's probably passed, and that should all be done by ordinance in order to be incorporated into the municipal code. I think it's probably past time that we go ahead and clean that up. So if anybody wants to volunteer to take that on, you can let me know, and I'll be glad to let you have that assignment. But it's gonna be looking at the, going and printing off the resolutions that we passed way back when. Probably using the same text, except changing it to an ordinance, so we can pass it again. And then probably looking at some municipal codes, Title Is, to see what we might be overlooking as far as what we should have included.
It does issue a city town that tells us what we have to do at the beginning of the year,
Okay,
1443-501.
well,
And it includes judging the election results.
Do we,
I don't like being told what to do.
Sorry.
you ought to be used to it, you've been married a long time.
Thanks for pointing that out. I'll need to go and take a look at that.
Dan, I can make that, create
Okay.
the ordinance from the
Thank you.
resolution.
Is that a requirement, Dan, to codify into?
It's not a requirement to put it in municipal code form. But I think it is a requirement to establish those rules by ordinance, not by resolution. It's just very convenient to have it in municipal code format. And I don't know that we'll codify our ordinances yet next year, but maybe by the year after that.
When I went on the board of commissioners, they had the office rest regulations and resolutions and stuff. And the first thing we did was, get it codified, and man, that was really helpful.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was all that expensive.
Have you checked into the expense of it yet?
I have.
Yeah, it was, the last time we checked, it was $500 for the first.
ISID spends about $1,000 annually, and then about $250 each time they submit changes.
I didn't know there was an annual cost. I knew there was a.
It's in the annual maintenance fee, and then the updates, because they maintain stuff on the web.
Do they do that through the municipal league?
No, they do it through municode.com.
Okay, because the municipal league will do it for $500 for the first codifying, and then so many dollars a page for any changes or any additions. So
I assumed we were gonna do it through the municipal league then.
yeah, that's the way I was gonna approach it. But. Okay, I had on my list here to resubmit the grant application for roads, but we already talked about that. We talked about setting up a police department. I am going to set up a committee next year in January to actually do a formal study on that. At Jerry's, Jerry found that website from the Department of Justice on how to set up a police department, and you don't just hang out a shingle that says we have a police department. It's a major step for the city to take, and we need to do it right. And there's grant money available from the Department of Justice to set up a police department initially, so a lot of the equipment, like the body armor and the radios and a lot of that kind of stuff that we'd have to buy up front, we can probably get grant money for if we have a plan. So I'm gonna put together a committee, and I'll probably ask Ken to chair that committee, because he's been working on a lot of these police contracts or sheriff's contracts and district court and all of that. So he's kind of in tune to all of that. And then we'll get members of the community that have experience in that area to help us. Okay, just the last thing, did everybody get their campaign financing reports in? Because they're probably past due by now if you didn't.
I think it's due the end of the year.
Yeah, it's due by the 30th.
Okay.
When's the financial one we have?
Financial statements by the end of January.
Wes, you get that, don't you?
Which,
Financial.
The statement.
your financial statement, but the report on
I've already done that.
campaign,
Yeah, I've already done that. But
and
financial-
that's even if you spent nothing, you still have
I
to
know,
submit
I
that
know.
one.
And I did.
Okay, but yeah, the statement of finances comes to me, even if you've done one, even if you did one for the election, you need another one.
But it
Okay,
ain't gonna be much different.
Barb, you're gonna have to bring your own name tag.
I'm planning on after Christmas sales to get my chair. I'm gonna buy a chair.
Just make sure it reasonably matches this. You don't have to buy your own chair. We have money to buy a chair.
I'll do it, I'll donate it to the city.
All right, any other,
That's a campaign expense.
any other council member comments? Scheduling. A regular meeting in January is going to be when?
Guess I better write that one down. You don't want it written down.
The 17th, January 17th.
Okay. Any announcements?
Ken Brown and I share a common, belief that we, at some point in time, like once a quarter, at least twice a year, that we try to have a joint workshop with BOC. And I think it might be beneficial.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean,
I think it'll be a
Suggest an
workshop,
agenda,
I don't think it'll be a formal meeting. And,
I don't know what everybody wants to know, so.
Well, evidently-
Suggest an agenda and I'll call the meeting.
well, the, BOC hasn't shown a hell of a lot of interest in the city council, that I can tell, other than that maybe they're listening from home. But, Ken's the only one that I know of that's ever showed up. Whereas a lot of us do participate in their meetings. So.
Well, like I said, I have no problems with having as many meetings as people wanna have, but I don't know what everybody wants to know, so,
Well,
suggest an agenda and we'll
I've been to
together.
meetings and they most of, I've heard people express they don't know what we're doing. I'm talking about the BOC members, they don't know what we're doing.
Okay. Any other comments? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Terry made a motion, and seconded it. Any
Ken did.
Lynn seconded it.
Oh, and
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas.